Let me tell you about Margaret. She was 68, a retired school principal from Ohio. For 7 years, she couldn't finish a sentence.
She forgot names, lost words mid-thought. Her husband watched her become someone he barely recognized. Her glucose was completely normal. Her doctor cleared her every year. Just stress, they said. Normal aging. Nobody checked her fasting insulin. It came back at 24. What I'm going to show you today is why brain fog, memory loss, and early cognitive decline in adults over 60 are often not what they seem.
And I'm going to show you the 7 ways insulin resistance is attacking your brain right now, starting with the one most people dismiss as just aging.
The good news, and I want you to hear this clearly, is that there is one specific mineral that begins reversing this damage within weeks.
Your brain runs on glucose.
Neurons without enough insulin cannot clear beta-amyloid plaques. Those plaques accumulate. That accumulation has a name some researchers now recognize.
Some researchers now refer to Alzheimer's as a form of insulin resistance in the brain, not caused by sugar, caused by insulin signaling failure.
This is why your glucose can be perfectly normal, like Margaret's, while your brain is in a slow insulin famine that your annual blood work misses entirely.
And the signs appear years, sometimes decades, before any diagnosis. I'm going to show you 7 of them, starting with the one most people already have. Before we get into the list, I want to make something very clear. Insulin resistance in the brain is not a life sentence. It is reversible.
The mineral I'm going to show you later has been studied specifically for its role in neuronal insulin signaling. We'll get there. First, the 7 signs.
Sign number 7, and I want you to be honest with yourself about this one. Do you ever feel like your thinking is wrapped in cotton?
Not tired, not sad, just slow. Like the world is slightly out of focus. Like it takes extra effort to process what someone just said to you. What's happening is an energy delivery failure. Insulin resistance in brain cells means neurons are running on reduced fuel even when blood glucose looks fine.
The trigger in most of my patients? Chronic stress. Cortisol chronically elevated drives insulin resistance directly, including in the brain's prefrontal cortex.
Most people treat brain fog with caffeine, more coffee, more stimulants. But that spikes cortisol further. You're feeding the exact mechanism causing the fog.
If you've been blaming yourself for not being sharp enough, stop. This is biology. And biology can be changed. Sign number 6. Sign number 6 is one spouses and adult children notice before the patient does. Unexplained irritability, short fuse, emotional instability after 60.
Most people blame menopause in women, personality in men. He's always been like that. Rarely does anyone measure what the prefrontal cortex is running on. Insulin resistance disrupts serotonin and dopamine regulation in the brain. The emotional centers go offline when the insulin key stops fitting the lock. The second villain here is sleep. Poor sleep raises overnight cortisol. Overnight cortisol raises fasting insulin. Fasting insulin disrupts neurotransmitters.
Research suggests that adults with fasting insulin above 12 have measurably lower serotonin precursor availability than those with insulin under 8. Not genetics. Insulin.
If someone close to you has changed, become more irritable, less patient, shorter with people they love, please watch to the end. This may be the reason. This is not a character flaw, it is a metabolic signal. Sign number 5 is one most people over 60 have experienced at least once this month.
Sign number 5. You're mid-sentence and the word just disappears. You know the word, it's in there somewhere. But retrieval takes seconds too long.
Or names. You see someone you've known for 20 years of Plo, and for 3 seconds, nothing comes. That pause, do you recognize it?
The hippocampus, your brain's filing and retrieval center, is one of the first regions affected by insulin resistance. It requires consistent insulin signaling to function. Imagine a library where the card catalog runs on electricity. Cut the power by 30%. Chronic cortisol, from chronic stress, from poor sleep, directly damages hippocampal neurons over time. And here is what matters. Hippocampal neurons regenerate. The brain has plasticity. Sign number 4. You walked into a room and have no idea why you're there. You put something down and it's gone. You read a paragraph and retain nothing.
Most adults accept this as normal aging. Every neurologist I know has heard it. I just have a bad memory now. No. Short-term memory requires insulin-dependent encoding.
Memory consolidation, the process of converting a short-term experience into long-term storage, depends on insulin receptor activity in the hippocampus.
Studies suggest adults with elevated fasting insulin encode and retain significantly fewer details in working memory tasks than age-matched peers with normal insulin.
The combination that accelerates this most? Chronic stress plus poor sleep. Elevated cortisol at night means insulin resistance is higher by morning.
This was Margaret's pattern exactly. High-stress retirement. When I finally ran her full insulin panel, she sat across from me and said, "So I'm not losing my mind? I've been terrified for 7 years."
She wasn't losing her mind, she was losing insulin sensitivity. That is a biological problem with a biological solution. Sign number 3. Sign number 3 is one nobody talks about, and one of the most telling. Getting lost in familiar places. Confusion about routes you've driven for decades.
You take a wrong turn on a road you've known for 30 years. You feel briefly disoriented in a store you visited 100 times. It passes. You say nothing.
Researchers studying early Alzheimer's consistently find entorhinal cortex disruption years before clinical diagnosis. I'm not saying every moment of disorientation means something serious. I'm saying if this is a pattern, weekly, monthly, it deserves attention now.
And again, this is not inevitable progression. This is insulin. Insulin is measurable, and what's measurable can be addressed. Sign number 2.
Sign number 2 is also the second villain, RADS, because it does both. It signals brain insulin resistance and accelerates it at the same time.
Do you wake up between 2 and 4 a.m., lie awake for an hour, feel unrefreshed even after 8 hours? That fragmented sleep pattern is not random. Here is the mechanism. Poor sleep raises overnight cortisol. Cortisol at 3 a.m. triggers a glucose. That nightly insulin surge accelerates the very receptor resistance your brain is already experiencing. Sleep disruption and brain insulin resistance feed each other. Insulis. Research suggests the brain clears beta amyloid plaques primarily during deep sleep. Fragmented sleep means
Margaret hadn't slept through the night in 4 years. She thought it was menopause, it was cortisol, it was insulin, and it was damaging her brain every single night. The solution I'm going to show you addresses both the sleep disruption and the insulin signaling simultaneously. But first, the most important sign.
Sign number 1 is not a symptom, it is a pattern. And when you see it clearly, it changes how you understand everything we've just discussed.
Sign number 1 is not a new symptom. Sign number 1 is the combination of everything I've just described, happening simultaneously for years.
Brain fog, mood instability, lost words, fragmented memory, poor sleep. When these appear together,
And it is a signature your doctor will not catch with a standard blood panel. Because the test that would show it, fasting insulin mode, is not standard protocol.
I've had patients who saw 4 different specialists, neurologist, psychiatrist, cardiologist. Not one ran a fasting insulin, not one.
Research suggests up to 40% of adults with mild cognitive impairment show markers of cerebral insulin resistance without elevated glucose. They are invisible to standard diagnostics.
When Margaret saw her insulin number through 2014, she asked me, "How long has this been happening?" I said, "At least a decade, possibly longer." She went quiet. Then she said something I've heard dozens of times. "I thought I was just getting old. I thought this was who I was becoming." That belief is what this channel exists to end. You are not becoming a diminished version of yourself. You may be experiencing a measurable, addressable metabolic problem, and there is something specific you can do.
The intervention I want to discuss is not a drug. It has no prescription barrier. It costs under $2 a day. And
Magnesium, specifically magnesium glycinate. Over 70% of American adults over 60 are clinically deficient. And this is not
And critically for what we discussed today, magnesium directly suppresses cortisol output and promotes deep sleep, the 2 drivers of overnight insulin damage. The form matters. Magnesium glycinate, not oxide, not citrate, was chosen specifically because glycinate crosses the blood-brain barrier more effectively. Research suggests consistent magnesium glycinate supplementation for 8 to 12 weeks improves insulin sensitivity markers and subjective cognitive function in adults 60+.
This is not a substitute for any medication you may be taking. Discuss it with your physician, or particularly if you take any medications affecting kidney function. What my patients typically report within 4 to 6 weeks: improved sleep continuity, reduced morning brain fog.
I'm not promising a reversal of years of damage in a month. I am saying that addressing the underlying mechanism changes the trajectory. That matters.
The other half of the intervention, reduce the cortisol drivers. That means addressing chronic stress and restoring sleep. Magnesium supports both. I tell my patients, don't try to change everything at once. Start with magnesium glycinate at night. Measure your sleep quality after 3 weeks. Now let me tell you what happened with Margaret. Because her story doesn't end with a diagnosis. It ends with something she didn't expect.
3 months after we started the intervention, magnesium glycinate, sleep protocol, reduced evening cortisol coming, Margaret called my office.
Her fasting insulin had dropped from 24 to 11. Her sleep was uninterrupted for the first time in 4 years. And her husband called her sharp again.
She said, "I thought I was disappearing. I thought my mind was leaving me. I didn't know it was something I could actually address. Margaret is not exceptional. In 21 years in practice, I have seen this pattern hundreds of times. Normal glucose, elevated insulin, a brain running on fumes.
And the system that was supposed to protect her, P, checking her blood sugar every year, P, was measuring the wrong number the entire time. That has to change.
Even 3 of the 7 signs I described today, Sprime, please ask your physician to run a fasting insulin panel. Your brain is not declining because you are old. It may be declining because your insulin system has never been properly monitored. Those are very different problems. Insulin controls your fat storage, your heart, your sleep cow, and your brain. Get your insulin right, and everything else follows. Type insulin in the comments right now if you've never had a fasting insulin test ordered by your doctor. I want to see how many of you have been flying blind.
If your sleep has been disrupted for more than 6 months, watch the video I've linked in the description. It covers the insulin mechanism behind 3 a.m. waking directly.
Subscribe if this channel is giving you information your appointments never did. We publish twice a week. The next video covers something your doctor measures every year, but wrong.